There we go. Good morning. Hi. Welcome to Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church's in-person and online worship. Whether today is your first time here or you've been coming for years, we're so glad you're with us. My name is Susie Hubley, and my pronouns are she, her, they, and them, and I'm a member of the worship committee. We are a growing community that transforms lives through the power of love. Our mission calls us to celebrate diversity, encourage spiritual growth, and promote social responsibility while we travel on and care for the earth. Welcome also to those at home who are joining us on Zoom. If you're attending for the first time, please go to our website and fill out the welcome card so that we can know more about you. This morning's service about religious divisions is presented by Allen Avenue's Worship Committee. Lay-led worship is a tradition at this and many other Unitarian Universalist societies. At Allen Avenue, the Worship Committee either sponsors or presents one such service a month. On most other Sundays, services are led by our minister, the Reverend Tara Humphreys. And I have one announcement written down and then another one. Share the Plate nominations are needed. It is our tradition to share 1/3 of each Sunday's offering to a nonprofit organization chosen by members of the congregation. Now is when the Social Justice Committee starts planning for next year's Share the Plate. Do you have a nonprofit organization that you would like to nominate for the 2023-24 church year? If so, there's a link to submit your nomination to the e-blast. Paper forms are also available on the Social Justice Bulletin Board in the foyer. Nominations will be collected through Friday, March 31st. The Social Justice Committee will vote on the nominations in April. For more information, see Julie Harrison or Jim Mason. And Annie Blanchard and maybe Patricia would like to come up and say something about sex.
Hi there. I'm Annie Blanchard, and Pat Ellen and I, who Pat's not here today, are the SEG coordinators. The SEG stands for Spiritual Enrichment Groups. You have an insert in your calendar today about the SEG groups. We do have some ongoing groups that have some openings, and we're going to pull together a short 5-week SEG group this spring that we're going to try for the first time. So you'll see that there's a sign-up form in back as far as give us an idea of what your availability is as we try to pull together this 5-week SEG. And then as you exit, just after the office door, there's a set of mailboxes, and you'll see there's a SEG mailbox, and so go ahead and throw that in there, or you can email Pat or I. And just for those of you on Zoom, if you don't have this, or in general, if you don't know about our SEGs, I just wanted to read what we have written here, that SEGs provide a great opportunity to stop, breathe, and focus on questions and topics that allow for personal, communal, and spiritual growth. Discussions in SEG groups are intimate and stimulating. It's a great time to talk about deeper life issues, a rejuvenating break during our busy lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. Now we invite you all to take this opportunity to silence your cell phones so that we can be fully present to one another. After the service, please grab a cup of coffee in the kitchen window and stay for conversation. We encourage you to find someone you've never met before and introduce yourself. Those on Zoom may stay on and connect with one another. And now, let us center our hearts and minds with the ringing of the bell.
And Corey is going to come up and help me with the chalice this morning. Thank you. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not harm, to help and not hinder, to bless and not curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. This call to worship is from Andre Moll. All that we share is sacred. As we gather together, may we remember when you share with me what is most important to you. That is where listening begins. When I show you that I hear you, when I say your life matters, that is when compassion begins. When I open the door to greet you, that is where hospitality begins. When I venture out to bring you shelter, that is where love begins. When I risk my comfort to ease your suffering, when I act against hatred, violence, and injustice, that is where courage begins. When we experience the full presence of each other because of our shared humanity, because of our differences, that is where holy gratitude begins. May this space be a table that is not complete until all are welcome. May this table be a space of beauty where together we create a series of miracles where all that we share is sacred. May it be so. And please join in singing hymn 1023, Building Bridges.
My name is Erica Bartlett, and since our topic this morning is religious divisions for the Time for All Ages, I'd like to tell you about a time in Unitarian history that involved religious divisions. This happened over 450 years ago in a place called Transylvania. Have any of you heard of Transylvania? Yes. And do any of you think about vampires when you think about Transylvania? So this is not a story about vampires, if you were hoping for that. It's about two men, Francis David and King John Sigismund. And remember, Transylvania was just like any other part of the world. But back then, something happened in churches called the Reformation. This was something that changed how Christian churches worked, and it meant that people who protested certain things about the church could create their own religious groups. In Transylvania, Francis David became the leader of a group of protesters who came to be called Unitarians. And after 10 years, Transylvania had 500 Unitarian churches. But the Unitarians weren't the only ones who had their own ideas about religion. There were 4 different religious groups who argued and fought about which one was right: Catholics, Lutherans, Calvinists, and Unitarians. That's when the King of Transylvania, King John Sigismund, had an unusual idea. He decided to invite the best, most convincing speaker from each of the 4 religions to come and debate for 10 days to see which religion was best, or had the best ideas. Francis David was the speaker for the Unitarians, and he won the debate. He even convinced King John, who had grown up Catholic, to become a Unitarian. But then came the most important part of all. Even though King John agreed with the ideas of Unitarians, he didn't tell everyone they had to become Unitarians. Instead, he issued a statement called the Edict of Torda. Torda is where the debate took place. And it said that people were free to debate about religious ideas anytime they wanted, but that was all they could do. They couldn't fight or punish each other. No one could threaten or harm a preacher or anyone else because of their religion. That's where we Unitarian Universalists get our 4th principle from, that we affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Unfortunately, not long after the Edict of Torda, King John died, and things changed in Transylvania, but Unitarians managed to hang on. Even though a lot of places haven't embraced that idea of religious freedom, it's become something that's valued in democratic societies like ours. And it's good to know that this idea has a connection to our religion. And now it's just about time for kids to go to their religious programming, so I'd like to invite Emily up.
Fourth principle, before we do the lamp lighting, everybody hold up 4. Erica was just talking about our 4th principle, the search for truth and meaning. Imagine your thumb as a flashlight. I want you to shine it down each of the paths of your fingers. That's how you can remember our 4th principle. We search for truth and meaning. Val, you'll never forget that. In a few moments, some of us will go to religious programming. But first, I invite our lamplighter, Jamie. Your turn, finally, to join me in the pulpit. A lamplighter is entrusted to transfer the light of the sanctuary chalice to the lamp and then go forth to RE spaces where they will light the chalices there. Jamie will now light the lamp. I invite those going to RE to follow the lamplighter as we carry the flame, expanding our sacred space.
My name is still Erica Bartlett, and I'm sure that I learned about Francis David in RE when I was growing up, but all I really remembered was his name, and maybe the fact that he was from Transylvania. That was much more interesting as a kid. But I couldn't have told you about him. I had to do a few Google searches to write The Time for All Ages. Or King John Sigismund, partly because I don't think I truly understood back then why the debate and the Edict of Torda were important. I didn't even really understand at the time that the religious divisions in my family were a big deal. I knew that my parents, my brother, and I had left the Catholic Church, but that everyone else in my mom's family was still Catholic. But I didn't realize until much later that this had been a big source of contention, especially with my grandparents. And that family tension was very small compared to all the people who've suffered because they didn't believe what others wanted them to. Francis David was certainly among those. As I mentioned in The Time for All Ages, in 1571, not long after the debates, King John died, and the new king, Stephen Bathory, wasn't interested in religious freedom or supporting Unitarians. It became a dangerous time for Unitarians, who didn't believe in the Trinity of God as the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Friends urged David to tone down his religious arguments, to stop insisting that Jesus Christ was human instead of divine. But David refused. He stuck to his beliefs, no matter what. As a result, King Stephen had David arrested, and David died in prison in 1579. It was another 200 years before Unitarians in Transylvania had some amount of religious freedom again. I've been thinking a lot about why Unitarians were considered so threatening. It's not as if they didn't believe in God or Jesus. They simply believed that even though Jesus was the Savior of humanity and was inspired by God, that he was not himself divine. To me, who's not a Christian, that seems like a technicality, but I suppose if you really believe it and if your identity is based on your religion, and if the way you run a country is tied up with that religion, anything questioning it or making people rock the boat would be considered dangerous. That makes what King John did with the Edict of Torda even more impressive. He didn't feel threatened by others holding different beliefs and didn't consider it a bad thing, as long as those beliefs didn't harm others. It took a long time for that idea of religious freedom to really take hold. And even now, I don't feel like we're quite there. While the United States is theoretically a land of religious freedom, that's not a reality in many ways. Among other things, we have the word God on our currency, people swear on the Bible in court, and unfortunately, we've seen a huge rise in anti-Semitism. It feels like this would be a really good time to go back to the tolerance of the Edict of Torda. Admittedly, I'm not expecting that to happen anytime soon, but it may help to remember these words attributed to Francis David, found on the walls of his prison cell. Quote, "Nor lightning, nor cross, nor sword of the Pope, nor death's visible face, no power whatever can stay the progress of truth. What I have felt, I have written. With faithful heart, I have spoken. After my death, the dogmas of untruth shall fall." End quote. Whether the dogmas of untruth will ever completely fall remains to be seen, but I hope we can all show some of the same courage and conviction as Francis David and the vision of King John as we affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning for everyone.
There we go. Good morning, I am Rick Kimball, and I don't have a full voice today, which is why I'm here and not there, but I still want to share some thoughts with you. Faith is at the heart of every religion. And faith, said Archie Bunker of 1970s TV fame, faith is something that you believe that nobody in his right mind would believe. Well, maybe. By Archie's logic, we who call ourselves people of faith are crazy. We are out of our minds. We are nuts. People not in their right minds gravitate toward other people not in their right mind in similar ways. And together they form churches and other religious institutions. Peeking and peering at those other institutions across the street, they discover people who are out of their minds in different ways than they are. And this they do not like. The difference in battiness disturbs them. They grow distraught, even to the point of violence. And therein, my friends, lies the source of religious discord, disdain, distaste. How odd this working of odd minds. Don't you love it? I do. I'm fond of absurdity. The only trouble is the violence, the genocide, the burning and bombing of churches and mosques and temples. Absurdity is fine. Hatred and killing are not. Maybe we should pause to consider the starting point of our analysis, that quote from Archie Bunker, one of television's all-time greatest bigots. A man designed to probe for the weak spots of all humankind in all faiths, all religion. A man designed to disdain. Perhaps we might look for a different source, one that takes a more positive view of the differences in religion. I nominate the late Forrest Church, my favorite UU theologian. His book, The Cathedral of the World, imagines us in a vast edifice, a cathedral filled with windows, looking out at the light. Too many windows to visit in a lifetime, windows looking out at the light of truth, each of them its own religious approach, each with the light shining back through to illumine one small piece of the eternal and endless mystery. Here, says Church, is a 21st century theology based on the concept of one light and many windows. There's just one problem with Church's vision, and here is his own revelation of that fault. The cathedral excludes the truth claims of absolutists. That is because fundamentalists claim that the light shines through their window only. Some, as we know from painful recent experience, go so far as to beseech their followers to throw stones through other people's windows. End the quote, but not the absurdity of the disturbing rather than enlightening sort. We invite all the world's believers into our cathedral, except for those who believe most fervently. That's no way to stop the bombing. I say, invite the absolutists into the cathedral. Go with them to their window, then lure them to yours. I'll show you mine if you show me yours. The process won't be quick or sure, but it's our only hope. Someday the absolutists may be comfortable sitting in a room like ours, our own tiny cathedral surrounded now by the world religious art of Sue Selby. And someday we may be comfortable having them here. With everybody now in it, our cathedral of the world becomes our cathedral of the universe. Well, wowza, we've got people out of their minds in infinitely different ways, all comfortable together, even learning from each other. Just look, wandering about are some interesting characters. Who is that over there? Hey, it's Archie Bunker. And who is with him? Why, it's Forrest Church. And who are those people approaching them? Gee, one of them looks, yes, it does, a whole lot like me. And one of them looks a whole lot like you. Moving together, talking together, viewing together, with a sense of peace in the air. Namaste, my friends. Namaste.
Open and welcoming faith community supported by your contributions. Each week, 1/3 of our offering is given away to a nonprofit organization whose mission aligns with our Unitarian Universalist principles. This month's Share the Plate recipient is Out Maine, whose mission is to build welcoming and safe communities for Maine's LGBTQ youth. You can find more information in your order of service. Donations can be made now as the basket is passed through the donate button on our website, or if you're a member, on Breeze. If giving through Breeze, please note if the donation is your pledge or a gift to our Share the Plate. You may also mail a check directly to the office. If you are visiting us for the first time this morning, please know that your presence is your gift to us. At this time, our offering will be collected and gratefully received.
Good morning, my name is Mike Luce. And I am a member of the worship committee when I remember. So the title of my piece, with apologies to Henry James, is Varieties of Religious Division. So when I started thinking about all the ways in which we divide ourselves religiously, I got overwhelmed by all the tentacles of religious belief, and even among just what we call the civilized world. And along with the almost endless number of different sects in the major religions, there is all those minor religions. Never mind the cults of personality, which I'd really like to. Most of us are reasonably familiar with the differing religions and sects in the Judeo-Christian history. The catalog of doctrinal differences would be huge, both in spiritual outlook and how they live life day to day. Some are even openly racist and/or nationalistic. Some are very focused on social justice in different ways. Prescriptions for how to lead a life range from the almost ascetic to the prosperity gospel. A disturbing number seem to be led by the nose by any number of televangelists, each with their own agenda. The mind boggles. At some point, when I'd gotten really tired of thinking about all the different Christian religions, is that the right term? Churches? Anyway, after that, I moved on to the Hindus just for something a little different. Now, the variations there really make my head swim. And they live cheek by jowls with Buddhists, Jainists. Jainists are a serious bunch, let me tell you. Muslims. Among just the Hindi, for instance, there are at least 4 sects, and each of them have significant differences from the others. Some believe that Brahman is the all-encompassing deity, a little like God, more or less over all the others, and then there's a lot of them. Others focus on Shiva, and there are lots of different forms of Shiva to worship. For the Jainists, karma isn't a concept. It's a physical thing that can attach to the soul. Remember the different yogis wandering around in the 60s and 70s? A lot of Hindus back in India looked at them as sellouts. Sort of like the Christian churches look at prosperity gospel folks now. So what do all of them have in common? The eternal question of what's going on? What should I do? Someone tell me. Oh, here it is. Yeah. And apparently this truth is the only truth. That's what this person or this book or somebody says, and I want the answer. When I'm desperate enough for the answer, I take it more seriously. Once I found it, now it needs defending, because if anything should shake that edifice, well, it doesn't bear thinking. So divisions are fine unless the stakes are too high and we're whipped into a frenzy, unless we lack the humility to keep questioning the answers. The reason I like talking about this is only partly to see what we hold in common, but it's also to keep in mind how many different ways we answer the same question. So let's keep the conversations going. I think we're all wrong and we're all right in our own individual ways. What I try to keep in mind is one of my favorite bumper stickers, which advises me not to believe everything I think.
You all remember last Thursday was a pretty miserable day weather-wise, and so I ended up canceling rehearsal that night because at the worst, the driveway would probably be still iced and black ice, and I just ran back to get it. But here we all are, and we put something together this morning. It's two pieces. One is called I Know This Rose Will Open by Miri Gregolia. And then the second one is Turn the World Around by Harry Belafonte.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know my fear. I know my fear. I know my fear will burn away. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose will open. We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do you know who we are? See you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do you know who we are? Whoa, so is life a mighty wow. So is life. Whoa, so is life a mighty wow. So is life. Water makes the river, river wash the mountain. Fire makes the sunlight turn the world around. Heart is of the river, body is the mountain. Spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the Spirit, truly of the Spirit. Only can the Spirit turn the world around. Whoa, so is life a mighty wow. Ha! So is life. Whoa, so is life a mighty wow. Ha! So is life. Whoa, so is life a mighty wow. Ha! So is life. Whoa, so is life a mighty wow. Ha! So is life.
And our closing hymn is number 160, Far Too Long by Fear Divided. If you could stand in body or spirit. Thank you.
extinguish the flames of the chalice. No. Yeah, okay. As we extinguish the flames of the chalice, I invite you to carry these words by Reverend Karen Anderson with you in the coming week. May we dare to live from the center of our being. May we make our own choices before others' choices make us. May the fire that burns in our belly light our way. And may the courageous commitment to our own inner lights make the world shine anew. Blessed be.